It's finally here. UFC 305. Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya. I've been waiting for this fight for over a year, ever since Robert Whittaker went down on the canvas and Israel Adesanya went in the cage and they had the face-off. I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for this for over a year, and it's here. It's fight week. As you can see right there, little preview to who I might be picking. But we're going to go through. We're going to give you every single one of these early picks. My early leans for every single one of these fights on the card. Okay, well, main card is okay. Prelims, pretty bad. But these are early leans, just picks, just who I'm thinking of taking. Okay, so don't take this and run with it. They're not bets. They're just early picks. Because some people want to know early in the week. Who do you got? Well, I'm going to let you know right here, right in this video. Start off, Stuart Nicoll. Jesus Aguilar. This man, Jesus. The man that put Shannon Ross on a poster. He's getting a tough matchup here in Stuart Nicoll. Now, Jesus Aguilar really ain't that good. He definitely did not win his last fight. Really have a hard time thinking that he won that fight against Mateus Mendonca. He was on his back for a lot of that fight. I'm not sure how he won. Maybe just some Mexico home cooking there. But this Stuart Nicoll guy, Australian dude, undefeated, I believe. Hopefully I'm getting that right. I watched some film on him. He's pretty decent. I mean, he can get some takedowns, and I think he can get a lot of top control on Jesus Aguilar, and I think Aguilar's takedown defense really ain't that good. His grappling's okay. His striking really ain't that good. People will say, this guy's got power. He's going to be able to land and all that stuff. But, bro, he knocked out Shannon Ross, okay? Really ain't that big of a deal. Everybody be doing that nowadays. So, Jesus Aguilar on the feet, I don't think he's really that dangerous. Nicoll ain't that dangerous either. He's a guy that wants to get you to the ground and pound you out, or submit you. I could see this fight probably going to a decision where Nicoll's got the more control time on the ground, just because Aguilar's takedown defense really ain't that good. He will fish for that guillotine, though. That man loves himself a guillotine. Okay? Dustin Poirier would be proud of Jesus Aguilar. This dude, mainly a submission guy, but he really loves that guillotine, and he will go for it. But at the end of the day, I don't think he's going to get it here on Stuart Nicoll. I wouldn't be shocked if he does. But for an early lean, I got to take Stuart Nicoll here, because Jesus Aguilar, not the greatest fighter. And honestly, with the Contender Series coming up, I think we're seeing a lot of these fights where guys are towards the end of their contract, or just guys that the UFC wants to get rid of because they don't really think they're that great. And they match him up with, an up-and-coming guy or a guy that's coming into the UFC, and they're like, well, if you lose to this guy, goodbye. And I think we're seeing a lot of these matchups now, especially with this next one. But Stuart Nicoll is the early lean. Kenan, Ricky Glenn. This is another spot where I think Ricky Glenn is he's on his way out, because he's on back-to-back knockout losses. He's older. He's moving up a weight class. Like, this guy's a lightweight. He should be a lightweight. I don't know why he's moving up to 170. To me, that tells me that he just not really trying to take his career seriously at this point. Maybe just get another paycheck before he walks out the door. Does that mean he's going to automatically lose here? No, because Kenan is terrible. He's not good. He's just a guy that very low volume. He's going to throw some heat, but sometimes he just doesn't throw. Like his fight. Oh, shit. His fight against Kevin Jousset, the dude just sat there and got his face jabbed off. Like, I don't know, maybe try to crash the pocket, maybe try to land something. He just literally just stood there, just eating jabs for the entire fight. His claim to fame is knocking down Ian Gary, but, after that, he got his face battered in. The guy gets hit a lot. He's not a guy that's going to mix in any type of wrestling or grappling. He's just going to look for that big bomb and try to sit you down. And Ricky Glenn, at this point, really not looking durable. He could probably get knocked out here, but Kenan really isn't good. So I guess the early lean is Kenan, but just seems like a matchup where, who's better out of the two bad fighters. And I guess Kenan probably is at this point. But Ricky Glenn's been around for a while. If he could turn back the clock, we'll see. But so the move up to welterweight really doesn't look good for him. Kenan's an early pick. Moving on. Tom Nolan and Alex Reyes. Alex Reyes, another one of these guys the UFC probably wants to get off of their roster. They're matching him up here with Tom Nolan, and Tom Nolan might be I don't know what he's done for the UFC or what the UFC sees in this guy, Tom Nolan. Like, obviously, he's got a great frame, and he's a young guy who has he's young in his professional career. He had a massive knockout on the Contender Series, but this is his third fight in the UFC, and they have matched him up with absolute cans. And he lost one of them, and he got knocked down in the 2 fights he's had in the UFC. Like, this guy has not looked good in the UFC. He really hasn't. Got knocked out by Nicolas Mota. Now, Nicolas Mota can knock people out. He has got some pretty heavy hands, but he's very short and not very high volume. So Tom Nolan being 6'3" should be able to keep his range, but no, he gets knocked out by Nicolas Mota. Then in his next fight, they give him Victor Martinez. Now, mind you, Victor Martinez got knocked out by Jordan Levitt. Jordan Levitt knocked out Victor Martinez. So Tom Nolan should be able to knock this guy out easily. It wasn't that easy. He got knocked down by Victor Martinez. That's a disgrace. He was like a minus 500 favorite, minus 600. He probably might have been bigger than minus 500. Like, you should go in there and just mop the floor with this guy. Gets knocked down. Now, he gets back up, lands a knee, and knocks out Victor Martinez, but not exactly a flawless performance. And now he's taking on Alex Reyes, who had the long layoff. He comes back against Charlie Campbell. He gets knocked out in the first round. Like, obviously, Alex Reyes at 36 years of age, he had like a 5-year layoff. He should lose this fight. But can you trust Tom Nolan's chin? I would say no. And they don't have the odds on here, but Tom Nolan is a massive favorite, like minus 1,100 type of favorite. And I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. I don't care if he knocks Alex Reyes out in the first round and looks flawless, I still wouldn't touch it. Because at the end of the day, if Alex Reyes lands an overhand right, Tom Nolan gets hit by that, he's probably going down. Because that chin is terrible. That chin is awful. And I don't know how long this guy is going to be able to last in the UFC with that type of chin. You get knocked out or knocked down by 2 very, very low-level guys, it ain't looking good. I know he's still young, but chin is something that just doesn't get better. It doesn't. So Tom Nolan is the pick. He's the better fighter at this point. Chin is suspect, but it really doesn't take much to beat Alex Reyes at this point, so Tom Nolan is the pick. Moving up, we got Jack Jenkins, Herbert Burns. Herbert Burns, another one of those guys. UFC probably wants to get off the roster. But I will say this. Herbert Burns is a motherfucker for the first 3 minutes. Why? Because he's going to go for that submission. And if you look at Jack Jenkins' record, Jack's been submitted a couple times. Now, Jack Jenkins, heavy leg kicks. And I think that's going to do wonders for him in this fight if he could stay at range and just chop down on those legs of Herbert Burns. Because Herbert Burns, really not a great striker, and he's a guy that wants to take you down. But he doesn't really have greatest wrestling. He's just got amazing BJJ. And he's a big dude for featherweight. Big dude. He's going to be a lot bigger than Jack Jenkins because Jack's kind of a shorter guy, stockier. Herbert, long, and still fairly built. I mean, he's just a guy that has no cardio. After he gets out of the first round, he's going to fall off a cliff, and then it's like, okay, how long is it going to take you to TKO this guy? So if Jack can survive the first round, then he should be able to get a TKO round 2 or 3. But that first round is obviously going to be sweaty because Herbert's going to be going for takedowns. He's going to be trying to take the back by any means. He's going to be trying to throw up a submission, and Jack has been submitted before, so that is something you got to watch out for. But Jack Jenkins is definitely the early lean, and he'll probably be my pick when I give out the official picks later in the week. Casey O'Neill and not to raise a blade, a UFC website. You're trash. You're trash. It's Casey O'Neill and Luana Santos. Like, Luana Santos has been in this fight for like 2 or 3 weeks. How does the UFC not have this on their website? It's Luana Santos versus Casey O'Neill. Luana's taking it on short notice. Casey, 2-fight losing streak. Ever since she blew out her knee, she doesn't look very good. She lost to Jennifer Maia by decision. She got all volume there and then got submitted by Ariane Lipski in December. I was at that fight, bet on Lipski, just blindly, women's MMA. I was like, shit, I'll throw some money on Lipski. Lipski's pretty good. And Casey O'Neill hasn't really looked that great. Lipski beat her. Lipski beat her on the feet. She took her down, submitted her. And this is not a good version of Casey O'Neill. Now, Casey O'Neill's wins in the UFC really haven't looked that great. And then on the other side, with Luana Santos, not Teresa Bleda. I'm just going to put my face over that so we don't think this is Teresa Bleda. Luana Santos, her wins in the UFC really aren't that good either. I mean, Juliana Miller, trash. Maria Agapova, trash. Stephanie Egger sometimes is trash. But I do think Luana probably has a lot more momentum going into this one. So that is something you got to take into account. Luana's probably the more confident fighter going into this one. Casey's probably the more motivated just to get back in the win column. I think their skill sets are fairly similar. I mean, Luana has okay striking. I think the judo could be a big play here. Just if they get in the clinch, Luana has some nasty judo throws just to get her to the ground. Casey has some decent grappling, but I don't really think it's that great. Like, she has shown some good high level. I can't even say it's like high level, but like, she's shown an ability to go to work on the ground. But I don't know that Luana is going to be getting submitted here, nor is she going to be like on her back for long periods of time. And in the stand-up, Casey O'Neill is so hittable. Right now, I guess I got to lean towards Luana Santos, just with the momentum. And her wins have looked pretty good, but they are low-level competition. So this is one I'd probably stay away from, but I'll take Luana Santos for an early pick. Move myself back up there. And we get to Josh Culibao and Ricardo Ramos. Now, Culibao, back-to-back losses, man. I bet against him against Danny Silva. I think it's Danny Silva in his debut, and Danny Silva won that fight by decision. It was a close fight. Probably could have went either way. And then before that, he lost to Lerone Murphy. And I would say those are two quality losses, although he probably should have beat Danny Silva. He's okay, man. He's a decent boxer who has no wrestling game, and his grappling is more defensive. If a guy's trying to take him down, he might try to get in a scramble and take the back type of thing, or just if an opportunity presents itself. He's not a guy that's going to shoot for takedowns or try to mix that in. He's a boxer at the end of the day. Decent kicks as well. Ricardo Ramos, I don't know what this guy's been doing, but it ain't been working, man. Just shooting takedowns and getting caught in guillotines. I don't know what this guy's game plan is going into fights. Like, obviously, I guess it's wrestling, but, you know, if you're training wrestling and if you're going into fights with a wrestling game plan, you should probably be able to defend a guillotine. But he just keeps getting stuck in it, and then he just panic taps, and that's the fight. Now, Julian Erosa has a great guillotine, so I can't take that away from Juicy J. Charles Jourdain has a pretty good guillotine as well. So those are two guys with really good guillotines. I don't think Josh Culibao has that type of guillotine. I think Ricardo Ramos could be the side here, because I think his stand-up is sometimes low volume, but he is very explosive and very creative with his strikes. Josh Culibao has had moments in his career where he doesn't look the most durable. I think if it's on the feet, it's probably a 50-50, but I think that Ramos can mix in the wrestling, and I don't really see Culibao throwing up any type of submission that would get Ramos out of there. So I'm going to lean with Ricardo Ramos at this point, but I got to look at these lines, and I think Josh Culibao could edge out a decision if it just plays out on the feet, but I think that grappling upside for Ricardo Ramos does give him a slight edge. So I will take Ricardo Ramos for an early pick. Junior Tafa Walter Walker. Absolutely disgusting fight. Absolutely disgusting. Walter Walker, I actually did not bet against him in his UFC debut against Lucas Dresky. So pissed I didn't, because I literally picked Lucas Dresky. And that's when Lucas Dresky became my guy. And then he lost his next fight. But Lucas Dresky, just... I saw the writing on the wall. Like, Walter Walker has no volume on the feet. He has beaten absolute cans. Comes into the UFC. Still has no volume on the feet. And then finally decides that he's going to wrestle. And when he does wrestle, he does no damage with it. He just gets you down to the ground and holds you. So that's not a great way to win fights in the UFC. If you can't land punches, and when you take guys down, you do nothing but hold them. Now, the thing with Junior Tafa is he's a good kickboxer who has power. But once he gets taken down, he cannot get up off his back. So if Walter Walker comes into this fight with a wrestling game plan, like he should have had in his first UFC fight, he could win. But we just saw Carl Williams, who should have had the game plan of wrestling against a kickboxer, not go out there and wrestle. So something tells me Walter Walker is going to go out here in front of all the fans and not want to wrestle. And if he does that, I think Junior Tafa could probably clip him with some shots. I don't think he's really that fluid. I think he came into the UFC and he was pretty highly rated as like the better Tafa brother. I'm going to have to see that one out. I think this is a big test for him because his last fight took it on like 24 hours notice, maybe less. And he got beat up in that one. But that was against Rogerio de Lima, who it bounces around the top 15 here and there. And Walter Walker is not that guy. So I think this is a better matchup for Junior Tafa. He just needs to stay off his back, and I think he wins. Definitely the better striker. Definitely going to have more output on the feet. But he's just got to be able to stuff the takedowns. And I looked at his stats. He has like an 80% takedown defense. But it's just when he gets taken down, he can't get back up, which is pretty much the case in heavyweights. 260-pound guy laying on you, it's going to be hard to get up. So, yeah, I guess I'll take Junior Tafa for an early pick, but definitely a greasy one, probably one you want to stay away from. Oh, what are the odds? I start coughing, we get Carlos Prates, the cigarette king himself. I love Carlos Prates, man. This guy is nasty. The fighting nerds have just absolutely blown up to be this camp of guys that are just unbeatable. And then Kenan goes out there, loses to Kurt Culibao. You can't claim Kenan anymore if you're the fighting nerds. You got to tell that guy to dip out because we only need Carlos Prates. We only need Jean Silva. We only need Caio Bajalio. We only need Mauricio Rufi. Those are the only good ones. Carlos Prates is very good. Southpaw striker, very long, very patient, very calculated. And he's taking on Li Jingliang, who's coming off a long layoff. Last time we saw this guy, he had a beautiful suit. Beautiful suit. He was ready for the press conference. Press conference didn't happen. He was going to take on Kevin Holland, I think. He was going to take on Kevin Holland. He weighs in at 170. And then he's got to take on Daniel Rodriguez, who weighed in at like 179. And then he wins the fight. But he doesn't. Because the judges scored it for Daniel Rodriguez. So this man's been through a lot. He's had an injury that kept him out. He's coming back. He's getting a tough matchup here. I think Li Jingliang has, throughout his career, shown that he's very durable. And I think it would be hard for Carlos Prates to knock him out. There's a path for Li Jingliang. Mix in some wrestling, because Carlos Prates really hasn't had that tested too much. His last two UFC fights, he's been able to keep it on the feet. But if he gets put on his back at the UFC level, we haven't really seen that yet. So if Li Jingliang can mix in some wrestling, then it gets a little dicey for Prates. Now, Prates does have submissions on his record. I don't think he's some fish out of water on the ground, but just to get him out of his groove, because if you let this guy, Carlos Prates, build into the fight, get in his groove, get his reads, then it's going to go downhill for you. With the ring rust of Li Jingliang, I don't think he's going to come out of here guns blazing and just put it on Carlos Prates, and I think eventually Carlos Prates is going to take over, and he's going to win this fight, either by late round stoppage or a decision, because the Leech is very durable. But I got Carlos Prates for an early pick. We'll move on to Tai Tuivasa, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Cutman tape, if you want to watch the Show Me the Money pod. Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Jairzinho kind of had a little resurgence here with a big win over Shamil Gaziev. Big win. Tai, 4-fight losing streak. It ain't been looking good for Tai, man. Tai nearly challenged for a UFC heavyweight title. Knocked down Cyril Gane in round 2. If he finishes that fight, he's challenging for a UFC title. We could have John Jones versus Tai Tuivasa. That's insane. This is a much better matchup, though, for Tai, I will say. Rozenstruik's never landed a takedown, and I don't think he's going to land a takedown in this one, nor is he a grappler that could get Tai out of there like a Tybura or even a Volkov. I will say this, Tai, he's going to need to chop the legs. I think he's going to need to chop the legs early on Rozenstruik because Tai has some very good leg kicks. It's just that he telegraphs them a lot, and when he's fighting these guys that are taller, like a Tybura, like a Volkov, they can just shoot a jab down the middle, shoot a right hand down the middle, and then he's off balance. He gets hit hard. Tai's very hittable, which is not a good thing for a matchup against Rozenstruik because Rozenstruik has the death touch. He could touch you once, and you're pretty much done. I think this is going to be a banger of a fight. I mean, I think both guys are going to come to throw. Rozenstruik, I think, is going to be the more calculated guy. Maybe he could catch Ty within the chaos, but I think Ty's just going to bring it. I think he's going to try to chop the legs, try to throw a big overhand right, and Rozenstruik's got to have some good footwork to be able to get out of the way and land some counter strikes, and I think he will. For an early pick, I got to go with Rozenstruik, but I do think he's a pretty big favorite, maybe minus 200 or more. I don't know if that's worth it. It's heavyweight MMA, and Ty is dangerous, but, he's on a 4-fight losing streak against grapplers. Rozenstruik's the pick, but say that with some caution for sure. Mateusz Gamrot and Dan Hooker. So if you know me, I might be one of the biggest Mateusz Gamrot haters on the planet. Nothing against the guy, because he seems like a great guy. But I absolutely hate watching this guy fight, because he's just diving at legs. And Dan Hooker, he's going to need everything in his arsenal to pull this one out, because the pace of Gamrot is just crazy. The way that this man just be trying to grab legs for 15 minutes is absurd. Like, this isn't a fight anymore. This is a wrestling match. Straight up. He didn't even try to strike. Now, I will say this. Gamrot has improved throughout his UFC career with his stand-up. Just sticks to a jab. Throw some leg kicks from the outside, and then shoot your takedowns. That's good. That's like little dressing on top to his wrestling, just to be able to jab and kick legs from the outside, because you can win minutes that way. If guys are, gun shy about throwing their hands because they're worried about the takedown, that's how you win minutes as a wrestler in MMA. So good for him. Dan Hooker, probably not a guy that's going to be scared, though. This guy really has never been scared throughout his career. He's just going to keep marching forward. He's going to take all the damage you throw at him. Gamrot probably not going to be doing a lot of damage. Probably just going to be doing a lot of crotch sniffing. But he's not going to give up on himself. He's a beast, man. He's a beast. He's a guy that can take his beating and just keep moving forward with a lot of output, good cardio. But I think in this matchup, it's just going to be tough. Like, Gamrot is just sniffing your crotch for 15 minutes, and nobody wants to deal with that. And once that's happened for, 7.5, 8 minutes, then you're just like, fuck, man. Like, what am I even doing here? This guy just wants to sniff my crotch. This isn't a fight. I'm just getting my crotch sniffed. I'm getting my legs grabbed at every single moment, and I can't do anything about it. I think that's probably what's going to happen. I don't think Dan Hooker is some amazing grappler where he can, hit reverses or stuff takedowns. Now, I will say this. Gamrot did have trouble getting Jalen Turner down for a good amount of that fight. And, Jalen Turner arguably won that fight just off of damage, and Gamrot needs to do some damage once he gets these takedowns, because guys have just been able to win rounds on him by landing a couple big shots, and then Gamrot holds them for 3 minutes, 4 minutes of the round, but they doesn't do any damage. So he's got to up that part of his game, but I will take Gamrot for an early pick. Kai Kara-France, Steve Erceg. It's an interesting one, because Erceg's coming off the loss in a title fight, and sometimes in these cases you get a little bit of a letdown. I will say this about Erceg. I don't think he's a guy that's going to, be super beat up about losing the title, because he's still young in his career. He thought he had a great fight. I believe he had a great fight. He could have arguably won that fight. And I think he comes into this one with an extra boost of confidence against Kai Kara-France, because Kai hasn't been very active as of late. He's probably going to have some ring rust out there. It's a 3-round bout. Kai is usually a guy that starts fairly well. He has amazing boxing. I will say that. Some of his combinations are very good, but on the other side, Erceg is a very good boxer as well, who he's not actually longer in this one, but he's taller. Like, I think Kai Kara-France has a slight reach advantage, which is weird because he's so small, but he's got some just ape arms. But Erceg's very sharp. He can land in the tiniest of windows. I think his knees could be big up the middle as well, just because Kai's a shorter guy. And if a guy's shorter, you throw the knees up the middle, it reaches their chin without, that much of a reach. So I think Erceg probably wins. He could maybe mix in some wrestling and some grappling, but Kai has some very good takedown defense. It's what he's had to do pretty much throughout of his entire career, is just defend takedowns, defend submissions, and get back to his work on the feet. The upside there for Erceg is definitely there. I think Erceg probably wins this one, but in a 3-round bout, Steve can lose rounds. He can lose rounds. I mean, he lost a round to Alessandro Casa before he fought for the title, I thought that was a close fight, but he managed to get the third round just to solidify that victory. But in a 3-round fight, loses 2 or one of them's a toss-up, then it gets dicey. But I do think Steve Erceg's probably the rightful favorite here, and I think he gets it done. So give me Steve Erceg. Brings us to the main event. Dricus du Plessis taking on Israel Adesanya. And I will say this, boys. This is an early lean. But it's a lean I'll probably have towards the end of the week because I've been thinking about this one for a while. And I will say this. Dricus has been my guy. Full transparency. Dricus has been my guy for a long time. I've bet on him every single fight in the UFC except his debut. So ever since the Trevor Giles fight, bet on him every single fight. So he's won me money every single time he stepped in the octagon. I can't just jump off of that loyalty. Okay, I have to take Dricus du Plessis here. I have to. And I will say, I see both paths to a victory. Now, Israel Adesanya is a very good counter striker and very good at keeping his distance. I think Dricus can struggle hitting Izzy. And I think Izzy could land some good counter punches or even kicks in those scenarios to where he could knock out Dricus. That is there. But I also think he could win a decision just based on landing the better strikes or knocking him down a couple times. But at the end of the day, I think Dricus is just a motherfucker. I think he's a guy that's just always going to keep moving forward. I think he needs to move forward in this one. I don't think he can get too reckless, but in the same time, that reckless, unorthodox type of striking could give Adesanya some issues just based on the fact that he's used to these guys like a Whitaker, like a Pereira, or even a Cannonier who's just much more technically sound or a lot more conventional to where he knows where the openings are going to be. And Dricus so unorthodox. You don't know what the hell this guy's doing. It might be hard for him to try to find something to counter with. We'll see. But I think Dricus' grappling upside is just massive here. I really do. I think if he comes into this fight with a game plan of I'm going to take this guy down and just make him wilt or even try to latch up a submission, just do damage on the ground, I think he wins this fight easily, man. I think Adesanya has not faced a guy like Dricus. And when I say that, he hasn't faced a guy that has heavy knockout power and has a great wrestling game and a great grappling game, a dangerous grappling game. Who's he fought at middleweight? It's Whitaker, Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier, and Alex Pereira. You could go as far back as like a Kelvin Gastelum, but I'm not going to go that far back. In recent memory, it's Whitaker, Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier, Alex Pereira, Sean Strickland. Lost to Sean Strickland. I'm just going to throw that one out because, you could chalk that up to a bad night for Izzy. I'm just going to throw that one out. So, Vettori, not a good striker, has mid-wrestling and almost no submission upside, and very conventional. Robert Whitaker, good striker, but a lot smaller than Israel. An okay wrestler, but a guy that doesn't really wrestle as a first option. And really not that great of a submission package. Cannonier, a guy that I don't even think he fought well at all. I think he just, the moment got to him. He didn't really push any type of pressure. He kind of just stood there and allowed Izzy to get off whatever he wanted to. And then Alex Pereira, obviously big power, great kickboxer, but no grappling upside. So it's a kickboxing match against, Adesanya and Pereira. In this fight, he's going to have to defend takedowns. He's going to have to worry about big power. And if he gets taken down, he's going to have to worry about a great submission package from Dricus du Plessis. He has more submissions in his professional career than he does knockouts. And not only that, his last fight against Sean Strickland, he was moving forward the entire time, went 5 rounds, showed that he has 5-round cardio. So, for 25 minutes, you're going to have to deal with this guy coming towards you full blown, mixing in takedowns. I think that's a tough matchup for Izzy. So I got to go Dricus, man. I got to go Dricus. I got my loyalty to him because he's made me so much money. And at this point, anything that I put on him, it's profit from what he's made me. So Dricus is my early pick, and he'll be my pick later in the week. You don't got to worry about me switching up there, but Dricus, let's go, baby. Let's go, baby. And still, the Battle for Africa, great card. I love the main event. I've been waiting for this fight for a long time. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. We'll be back here with the official picks later in the week. Best Bet show on Friday. And maybe a little bit of extra content. We'll see. But appreciate y'all. Till next time. Hey, Job Picks. Yeah.